والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق أجمعين محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. The subject of fiqh, we discussed about rules regarding wudhu, and still there are more rules and regulations coming here. It is issue 305, rules regarding wudhu. You say if a person doubts too often about the acts of wudu and its conditions, like about water being tahir or its being usurped, he should not pay any heed for such doubt. Some people are obsessive and they have that nature. When they perform wudu, we say, no, wudu is not right, the water is not tahir, it may be makhsoob, I don't know, it come from the city may be usurped it from other people, so maybe this is usurped, and so on. That is always his habit of obsession. In obsession, they said always he should not care for his obsession, whether in prayer or in wudu or in any act. The best way to treat his obsession actually is not to repeat the actions again. If he in prayer he has always said, I don't know, it is 2 rak'at, 3 rak'at, 4 rak'at, so you don't care. You say 2, 3 and do it as it is, don't care for it. Okay, my reciting is not right, so I recite again and again and again the same sentence. He repeated 10 times because he is not right. He said, no, you are not allowed to repeat. Do not repeat. You do it once, whether right or wrong, don't care. Because your judgment is not right, you have obsession. That is actually the Islamic ruling for those who have that obsession and they repeat things without justification. They said they should not. Their duty is not to repeat. And practically, we see that is really a treatment for their disease, because by time then they will be all right and that obsession will go out of them. Issue 306, if a person doubts whether his wudu has become void, he should treat it as valid, but if he did not perform istibra. See here what he wants to say, and we discussed before, that you have to decide about certainty that you have. If one performs wudu and he is certain he performed wudu, but when he left his house to the office and maybe 2-3 hours passed, then he doubts whether he invalidated his wudu or not. Now he was certain he took wudu at home, he performed wudu at home, but he is not certain whether wudu was invalidated or not. They say he should not care for his doubt. He said, no, I perform wudu. But if he is not certain, he knows that he, let us say, went to toilet and then at the same perform wudu, and he doesn't know which one was first, which one was later. So here he is not sure that he performed wudu, and he is with a state of taharat. So here he has to perform wudu. So the general rule, whatever you are certain, you should act accordingly. If you are certain you have passed urine, you went to toilet, but you are not certain whether you have performed wudu later on or not, then naturally your wudu is not valid because you are not certain of it. Or in the contrary, you are certain you perform wudu at home, but because 3-4 hours passed, you are not certain whether you lost your wudu or not. You say you don't care for your doubt. Issue 308, if a person is sure that he has performed wudu and has also committed an act which invalidates wudu, like urinating, but does not remember which happened first, he should act as follows. If this situation arises before his prayer, he should perform wudu, because for the prayer you have to make sure that you are at a state of purification, so you have to perform wudu. If it arises during a prayer, he should break the prayer and perform wudu. But if it arises after the prayer, that prayer will be valid, but for the next prayers, however, he should perform wudu. So he is doubtful. If it is before the prayer, then naturally he has to pray with certainty that he is at a state of purification. So he has to perform wudu. At middle of the prayer, now half past of the prayer, but another half, again he has to make sure he is at a state of taharat or purification. So he has to break the prayer and perform wudu. But suppose he prayed Dhuhr prayer, and after Dhuhr prayer he doubted. So for Asr prayer he should perform wudu. But is his Dhuhr prayer is valid? He said yes, if it passed. And naturally here he is not sure. He is in doubt. So if he was sure that he prayed Dhuhr prayer without proper wudu, without taharat, naturally he has to repeat his prayer. But he is not sure. He knows that he performed wudu, and he knows that he went to toilet, but he don't know which one was first, which one was second. So for the past prayers, you regard them as all right. For the coming prayers, you have to make sure that you are at a state of purification and perform wudu again. Issue 309. If after or during wudu a person becomes sure that he has not washed certain parts or has not wiped them, and if the moisture of that parts preceding them has dried up due to lapse of time, he should perform wudu. Now it is, he used the word, he was certain, After or during the wudu, he is certain he did not wash or he did not wipe certain parts of wudu. He is certain. If he is certain, then he has to do it again. And if the moisture has not dried up or has dried up owing to hot weather or other similar cases, he should wash or wipe the forgotten part as well as the parts which follow. Similarly, if during wudu he doubts whether he has washed or wiped part or not, he should follow the same rule. If there is a time of wudu, you have not finished the wudu. If you have doubt, you have to make sure that you washed and wiped everything. And after the wudu, if he has certainty, not doubt, because after wudu, doubt has no value. You were certain, you perform wudu, now you doubted, you don't care for your doubt. But he used at the beginning the word certain. After wudu, I am certain I did not wash my face properly or my hand properly. So here he has to go back and perform wudu. Issue 310, if a person doubts after prayer whether he performed wudu or not, the prayer offered by him would be in order. As far as the next prayers, he should perform wudu. So, as we said, the doubt came after the prayer, and he doesn't know after the prayer whether he performed or not. Very good doubt. Usually I perform wudu at home before I leave the house. But today I perform wudu or not, I don't know. So here, see, state where doubt has come. Though usually I am doing it, but today, I was in hurry, in rush, so I'm not sure, did I perform wudu or not? So for the prayer which was already prayed, finished, you don't need to repeat it because you are not sure it was done improperly without wudu. But for the coming prayer, you have to be sure that you are in a state of taharat, so you have to perform wudu again. Well, issue 311, he said if during the prayer, not after the prayer, no, we said that his prayer is void and he should perform wudu to make sure that he is on a state of wudu. He's certain of it. Issue 312, if a person realizes after offering prayers that his wudu became void, but doubts whether it became void before the prayer or after, the prayers offered by him will be deemed in order. No, because after the prayer, now there is a doubt whether the prayer was all right or not. You say after the prayer, the doubt has no value. It's only doubt, not certainty. It was certain that, well, he lost his wudu, and then he offered the prayer, and then later on he remembered. Now he is certain, of course, he has to perform the prayer again. But if he prayed and later on he doubted, well, okay, in the morning I performed wudu, but maybe I lost my wudu, I don't know. So now for that prayer which he prayed is all right. For the coming prayer, he has to make sure that he is in a state of taharat, has to perform wudu again. Now issue 313 and onward, he talks about people who have a state of incontinence. They cannot control their urine, or they cannot control their stool to come out. And urination or defecation are the cases which invalidate wudu. Somebody has incontinence. Well, some people at old age or due to certain sickness, they got this condition. What they will do? Said if he can perform wudu and offer the prayer one by one, at least Dhuhr prayer with that wudu, and then, let us say, after 5 minutes he loses wudu, so he has to perform wudu for each prayer. So if it is possible to perform one full prayer properly with wudu, I mean, he can control himself, let us say, only 5 minutes. So he can perform wudu and offer his prayer in 5-6 minutes, and he can control himself for that time. And then for Asr prayer, he has to repeat the wudu. Well, the same for Maghrib, and for Isha has to repeat because he could not control himself. But sometimes he cannot control himself. He said if he can treat himself, he should go and treat himself, because he has to pray, that is obligatory, and prayer has to be with state of taharat, state of purification. So he has to treat himself and then perform proper wudu and control himself. But if he cannot, he has a sickness, disease. He said if he can offer the prayer with only obligatory acts. I mean, you know, in ruku' to say Subhana Rabbi al-Azim wa bihamdih, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, Subhanallah, Subhanallah, Subhanallah. The obligatory act is either Subhanallah, 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 or Subhana Rabbi al-Azim wa bihamdih. The rest are recommended. So he said he should perform only obligatory acts. So to finish it as quick as possible with ability to control himself. But if there is continuous dribbling, as some people, okay, here they say obligatory to put, let us say, a pad or a sack that at least he will not make najis other parts of the body. Let only whatever necessary to be najis wudu will come, will not contaminate other parts of the body, because he put, let us say, a sack or a cotton to prevent urine from contaminating the body, and perform wudu in that case. You know, it is better here, he said, for every prayer to perform wudu, though he said it may be sufficient one wudu for, let us say, Dhuhr and Asr, because that dribbling is continuous in that case. So these are different issues regarding that which explain this case. We come to issue 322, a new subject, things for which wudu is obligatory. What things need that we should be at a state of taharat, as we say, or purification? They said there are many things. Issue 322, it is obligatory to perform wudu for the following 6 things. First, for all obligatory prayers except prayer for the deceased, for mayyit. As regards mustahab prayers, wudu is a condition for their validity. So all the obligatory prayers, the daily prayers, or Salatul Ayat, prayer when there is a earthquake or certain hazards, well, people fear about it, that necessitate what we call Salatul Ayat. And the recommended prayers, the nafile, all one has to be on a state of taharat. You should perform wudu. But for the prayer over the deceased, if somebody dies, there is a prayer to pray. For that, it is not obligatory to be on a state of taharat. So except that, though it is obligatory prayer, but taharat for that is not obligatory. Second, he come for the sajda and tashahud which a person forgot to perform. You see, if somebody forgot one sujood, he did one instead of two sajda in the prayer, he did one and forget the second one. But then at time of tashahud or after the prayer, he remembered that he did not do sujood twice, he did it once. Here we perform what we call qada of it. He do it separately. Or if you forgot tashahud, you do it separately. For that, because that is part of the prayer, he said then wudu is necessary as well. So if after the prayer he's lost his wudu, then he should perform the wudu. It's not okay to do it without wudu. Third, for the obligatory tawaf of the Holy Kaaba. Now those who go for Hajj or Umrah, inshallah everybody will get the tawfiq to go there. They have to perform tawaf 7 times around the Kaaba. At time of tawaf, one has to be at a state of wudu. You should perform wudu and go with the state of wudu for tawaf. Of course, after tawaf, there is 2 rak'ats to be offered there called Salatul Tawaf. That, of course, is a prayer, and for that, wudu is also obligatory. But that is included in prayers. But for tawaf itself, to go around Kaaba 7 times at time of Hajj or Umrah, wudu is obligatory. Well, 5, if a person has made a nadr, for example, that he would kiss the Holy Quran. Actually, to touch the writing of the Holy Quran, you need to be on a state of taharat. لا يمسه إلا المطهرون. So the apparent meaning is the Holy Quran's writing should not be touched except with those who are in a state of taharat, purification. So if somebody did nazr for any reason that he will touch the Holy Quran to fulfill his nazr, so he has to perform wudu and touch the Holy Quran. Then 6, for washing and making tahir the Holy Quran which has become najis, or for taking it out from a lavatory. You see, if the Holy Quran become najis because of any condition, suppose they were thrown in najis water in the street by someone by mistake, by a child, or if there is a pit where there are najis things and the Holy Quran, maybe one page, maybe part of it, maybe all of it, a child, he take one paper of the Holy Quran and he throw it in a garbage which has najis things. So you have to take it out. Naturally, when you take it out, you have to touch the Holy Quran. So then you have to be in a state of taharat. You have to perform wudu and be in a state of taharat, and then take the Holy Quran and then wash it with water to be tahir. These are naturally general conditions as mentioned. In issue 323 here, he mentions, again reiterate that it is haram to touch the script of the Holy Quran with any part of one's body without performing wudu. I mean, to touch the Quran by hand or by arm or by skin of the body, if it touch my body or by any part of my body, should not touch the Holy Quran if we are not in a state of wudu. Whether this issue is there for the translation of the Quran, he said no. However, there is no harm in touching the translation of the Holy Quran in any language without wudu, because the translation is not a Quran. Of course, some of the ulama has ihtiyat and precaution. He said even the translation, but according to Ayatullah Al-Sistani, he said there is no harm, because what is not allowed to touch without wudu is the Holy Quran in Arabic, and that is the writing. The translation is actually not that Holy Quran. It is the meaning of the Quran, and for that it is okay to touch if we are not in a state of wudu. Issue 324, he discussed if a child or an insane touches the Holy Quran, is it obligatory for us to take him away? He said no, it is not obligatory for us, because it is not haram for the child. Still he is a child, is not to be questioned, and the insane is not haram, unless there is insult to the Quran. Okay, the child will take the Quran, will throw it, then there is insult. But Quran, the child, he want to touch pages of the Holy Quran, is not haram for the child, and it is not obligatory for us to prevent him. Now, issue 325, this is important. They say it is haram as an obligatory precaution to touch the name of Allah or His special attributes without wudu, in whichever language they may have been written. So he said before, to touch the Holy Quran, the Holy Quran's translation is okay in whatever language, but here the names of Almighty Allah and His particular attributes, even if they are translated in other languages, we are not allowed to touch without a state of wudu. And it is also better not to touch without wudu the names of the Holy Prophet of Islam, the Holy Imams, and Lady Fatima Zahra, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhim ajma'in. He did not put it as an obligatory. He said it's better, because that is a recommended precaution, and the word better here means that. Issue 326, if a person perform wudu or ghusl before the time for prayers, in order to be in a state of purity, they will be deemed valid. And even if he performs wudu near the time of prayer, with the intention of preparing himself for prayer, there is no objection. What does it mean here? If it is not time of a prayer, and I want, let us say, 1 hour, 2 hours before time of the prayer, Dhuhr prayer, let us say it is 1 o'clock afternoon. At 11 o'clock morning, I want to offer wudu. What will be my intention? If my intention to be in a state of general purity, that is fine. At any time I can perform wudu to be in a state of purity or taharat. But if I have intention that I offer my wudu for Dhuhr prayer, well, it is not time of Dhuhr prayer. So for what you perform wudu? So here is not allowed. But if it is near the time, 1-2 minutes, and I need to prepare myself for Dhuhr prayer, only few minutes remain for Dhuhr prayer. He said in that case it's okay, because you are preparing yourself. So practically, generally speaking, it is always better to have the intention when you perform wudu for the sake of God and for a state of purity, taharat, not for the sake of the prayer itself. Because let's say if in the morning, let us say 9 o'clock you leave your house, but because you have no facilities at the school or a university or in the work to perform wudu at time of Dhuhr prayer, you said it is for Dhuhr prayer, is not allowed. But you say for a state of purity generally, then it is okay, and it is recommended, of course, to remain in a state of purity continuously. And that would increase rizq also in certain traditions. Your sustenance will increase if you are in a state of purity, and at time you perform wudu always. So the intention is to be for the general purity, not for the prayer, unless it is time of the prayer or near the time of the prayer. Issue 327, if a person believes that the time for prayers has set in and makes the intention of wajib wudu and then realizes after performing the wudu that the time for the prayer had not set in, his wudu is in order. Now if he thought the time and he performed and he said the wudu is in order, that differed that you know the time of the prayer after 2 hours, after 3 hours, that is different case. In issue 328, he said now, for certain condition, wudu is recommended, mustahab, not obligatory, like for the prayer over the deceased, as you said, salatul mayyit, then to pray is not wajib, but it is recommended. Entering a mosque, if you have not performed wudu, you can enter the mosque, no problem, but it is recommended to perform wudu. Entering the shrine of the Holy Prophet and the Imams, and for reading, writing, or touching the margin or border of the Holy Quran, or for keeping it with oneself. Now we said to touch the writing of the Holy Quran is not allowed unless you are in a state of purity. But what about the margin, which are blank pages, the edge of the pages, there is no writing? He said there is no harm, but here recommended to be in a state of purity, not obligatory. If you have a small Quran, you carry it with yourself, well, it is recommended that you be in a state of purity. Though the Holy Quran will not touch your body, because you are putting it in the pocket and it has a cover, so it is not obligatory, but it's recommended. And before going to bed for sleep, it is also mustahab that a person who has already in wudu should perform a fresh wudu for every prayer. You see, if somebody perform wudu for Dhuhr and Asr and then Maghrib and Isha comes and he is still in a state of purity, here is recommended to perform wudu again. Not obligatory, but recommended. And before the sleep, actually it is very much recommended in traditions that before you go to bed, you perform wudu. And that is the Malaika will pray for you till the morning, and it is with a great thawab. So it's very important to be done, but of course it is recommended, not obligatory. Now if he has performed wudu for any one of the above purposes, he can commit all acts which require wudu. For example, he can even pray with that wudu. He had intention of wudu for mustahab things, not for wajib. But because he is in a state of purity, it is no harm. I mean, I want to enter the mosque maybe 2 hours before the Dhuhr prayer, for example. So I perform wudu for mustahab to enter the mosque. But then when I enter the mosque and then 2 hours pass and time of Dhuhr prayer started, I am already in a state of wudu. My wudu is all right. Now here in issue 329, he discussed things which invalidate wudu. If I perform wudu, what will invalidate my wudu, that I should perform wudu again? First, passing of urine. 2, passing of excretion. 3, passing wind from the rear. 4, asleep deep enough to restrict sight and hearing. However, if the eyes do not see anything but the ears can hear, wudu does not become void. So sleeping will invalidate wudu. But sometimes one is not sleeping properly at the beginning of a sleep. Like he closes his eye, he do not see, but he hear the voices. So he's not at a state of sleep really, So that is okay. His wudu will not be invalid. But if he reached a state that he do not hear and do not see, then already that means he is in a state of sleep and his wudu is void. So sleep means it's such deep enough that he is not seeing and cannot hear. Things on account of which person loses his sensibility, like insanity, intoxication, or unconsciousness. When one loses consciousness, I mean, if he's all right and he has, let us say, attacks of schizophrenia and he loses his senses, or he uses intoxicants and get intoxicated, naturally he loses control on his brain, or if he fell unconscious, or if he had an anesthesia in operation theater, general anesthesia where he loses his senses, so that will invalidate his wudu. The other one is istihada, which will be dealt with later on. And the last one is janabat, and as a recommended precaution, every state which requires ghusl. There are ghusl mas al-mayyit, for example, and other states which require ghusl. He said every state which requires ghusl as recommended, but specifically janabat will invalidate the taharat or purity. والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد.